We have worked hard, we have listened, and worked even harder at times. Now it's time for the wrap-up. I'm delighted to see each of you. You look wonderful. We're going to ask that Miss Stephanie Johnson, who is our graduate assistant here at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, come for her reflective moments. But just before she comes, now maybe I should tell you later, you might forget. Ms. Johnson, please.
Thank you. Dr. Benjamin, panelists, and colleagues, it's my pleasure to present to you the reflective moment. You see, I'm an educator aspiring to become a licensed secondary science teacher. And as I reflected over what I saw as my #1 objective as an educator who embraces problem-based learning, I started brainstorming. And I come up with student-centered learning, student engagement, student accountability, and relevance of the learning to the students. Yes, the common threads for me as an educator are my students and their relationships to learning. That thought led me to select the following poem entitled Speech to the Young, Speech to the Progress Toward by Gwendolyn Brooks. Now, before I read the poem, let me just tell you a little about the poem. Gwendolyn Brooks used 4 specific epithets to describe negative people. And according to Brooks, these groups of people need to be sent a message. The message she wants spoken to these group of people is even if you're not ready for day, and it cannot always be night, means to be ready at all times. Means whenever there's change or a difference in tomorrow, embrace it. Don't run away from it because you cannot avoid it. And while you're going through the challenge, accepting it, remain positive because during that process, when you reach that particular goal or task, then you feel a great glory or pride when that task has been accomplished. In the concluding stanza, Brooks gives advice to the young. However, I feel that this advice can go to anyone who needs to be reminded that tomorrow is another day. She encourages us not to live in the past or wish our time or day away, but instead just appreciate the moment. Live every day one at a time. So as I read the poem, Speech to the Young, Speech to the Progress Toward, I ask that you reflect upon the words. Say to them, say to the downkeepers, the sun slappers, the self-soilers, and the harmony hushers, even if you're not ready for day, it cannot always be night. You will be right, for that is the hard home run. Live not for the battles won. Live not for the end of the song. Live in the long. Thank you.
We will have a musical selection, but just before we have the musical selection, so that you can contemplate what you will have for lunch, to my left is a fish line. The reason I'm giving you all of these directions today is this. You have a choice today for lunch, 3 choices. To my left is the fish side. They asked me to share with you that on the fish side, there are 3 tables with the sides, and the fish is on the 2 tables in the rear, so there'll be no confusion. To my right is that bird that is produced here in Arkansas, chicken, and as much as you want, with the sides and everything on the same table. If you're a vegetarian, directly behind the platform, you will find the table prepared, set up for vegetarians. The desserts and the beverages are exactly where they were on yesterday. Now, as we ask Miss Neosha Evans to come and give us this musical selection, we're going to ask you to think about what you're going to have for lunch, but do not move until Miss Patrice Fisher raise your hand and wave it for us, Miss Fisher, will you please? If you don't see her at your table, please keep your seat. We're going to ask that the head table go first. Miss Neosha Evans. And Phyllis. Felissa Dunk. And Felissa Dunk. We have a duet. How marvelous.
Hello. My name is Neosha Evans, and And I'm Felisa Dunk.
We'll be singing Sous Me Père, and it's a duet. It's from Lakme. She's Lakme, and I'm her servant Malika. And it's basically talking about the beauty of nature and us enjoying it together. So here it is.
Simply beautiful. We're so proud that there are students here at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, 2 undergraduate students and a graduate student that gave the reflective moment. We're indeed proud of them. And as the echo of the music continues to ring in your ears, Ms. Fisher will be with you shortly.
It's always wildfire season somewhere in America. Nearly 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by the carelessness of humans and could be prevented. But together, we can make a difference.
Watch what I can do!
Help protect the home of our forest friends.
Come on! You can do it!
Only you can prevent wildfires.
To find out more, log on to SmokeyBear.com.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Yo, check out this chef, right? Right?
That's so gay. That's really gay.
Dude, look at those pants.
Please don't say that.
What?
Don't say that something is gay when you mean that something is dumb or stupid. It's insulting. It's like if I thought this pepper shaker was stupid and I said, man, this pepper shaker is so 16-year-old boy with a cheesy mustache. Just saying. When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
Lead paint poisoning affects 1 million children today. If you're pregnant or have young children and your home was built before 1978, you could be at risk. Learn how to protect your family. To find your home's danger zones, the health effects, or just to find help, log on to leadfreekids.org.
He's head of the Literacy Institute, Adult Education, Ronald McNair Scholars Program, Upward Bound Program, Thurgood Marshall Teacher Quality and Retention Project, the National Board for Teacher Certification Support Center, and the Minority Initiative Sub-Recipient Tobacco Grant Project, along with the Arkansas Geographical Critical Needs Minority Teacher Scholarship. Under his leadership and his continuing leadership, the School of Education has received 3 consecutive continued accreditation approvals by the National Council for the Accreditation of Teacher Education, known as NCATE. He currently serves on many and numerous national and state boards, including the Advisory Board for the Council of Accreditation for Programs in Education, the Arkansas Humanities Council, the Education Commission for the States, and Arkansas Partnership for Teacher Quality. He is well renowned. He's had at least 3, maybe 4 government appointments over the previous years. 1, the adult literacy. He's been a part of the Delta Cultural Center and the Education Commission of the States. His service on other numerous national boards include the National Council for Accreditation of Teacher Education, the National Association for Accreditation of Teacher Education, and the Teacher Education Council Resign Commission, as well as an evaluator for the Higher Learning Commission, North Central Association, and the American Association of Colleges for Teaching and Education, Committee on Professional Preparation, Accountability, and Teacher Quality. Now, as you can well see, as I read, he is very, very knowledgeable of teacher education. What else do we know about Dr. Calvin Johnson? Well, he was elected to the Arkansas Legislature in 1999 and served as a legislator for 6 years. During this time, he had many numerous leadership positions, including chair of the House Education Committee during one of our most critical stages in Arkansas, the Lakeview versus Arkansas court case. He was also co-chair of the Joint Education Committee on Adequacy. He was chair of the Black Caucus Committee on Tobacco Funding, representative on the Scholarship Committee, and Committee on Adequacy and Equity. He sponsored many legislation bills that impacted education, student achievement, teacher recruitment retention, parental involvement, closing the academic achievement gap, and P12 teacher education partnerships, and also the Arkansas Education Renewal Zones. Now, let me tell you how I know him. I would like to introduce to you a mentor, someone who is an avid fisherman, hunter, motorcyclist, car enthusiast, as well as, among other things, a Renaissance man. You know, upon my arrival here, Dr. Johnson, I can remember going to a conference here in Arkansas for the Association of Teacher Education, and every presentation in the session, including the moderator, everything they were doing was based off some form of legislation that Dr. Calvin Johnson had sponsored. So if you all welcome our esteemed colleague who is coming back in a newer position, an important role, one in which I know he can provide great leadership within the transitional time, I give you Dr. Calvin Johnson.
Good afternoon. You know, I'm thinking behind that, maybe, Dr. Torrance, I should just keep my seat, because once I open my mouth, I'm going to reveal the truth. But to Dr. Linton, and Dr. Benjamin, Ms. Thomas, Mr. Bennett, and again to Dr. Torrance and Ms. Johnson, I don't know where she ran off to. I'm deeply honored to have been asked to serve as your speaker, to bring you closing remarks. I won't say speaker. And I'm reminded, Dr. Benjamin, that you told me that I had just 45 minutes. Is that right? Seriously, you know, she said much less than that, so I'll be very brief. But, you know, last night I was looking through some notes that I had written, and I noticed my wife kept looking to see what I was doing. So finally she said, "What are you doing, getting together some handouts or something?" It was my speech, but she thought it was handouts. It's just that much information, Ms. Cottingham. But there's just so much to speak about, and the timing is so critical. And you know, I've listened during the sessions, and I noticed something kept coming up about fishing and fish stories. I don't know why, but I do know that Mark Twain said, and I quote, "Don't tell fish stories where the people know you, but particularly don't tell them where people know the fish." So I won't tell any fish stories. I want to thank Dr. Benjamin again and the conference committee for their vision. And if you will notice in the conference booklet, each of the sessions that have been held over the last 19 years have attempted to address critical issues related to education, or items or issues related to education. And I think that's for a reason. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But I do want to go back and say to Dr. Torrance how much I appreciate that introduction. And also, I take credit for whatever he is. No, he's not. I take credit for it because I recruited him here he was up in Nebraska, I think, and I convinced him that the weather was much better here in Arkansas and a lot of other things, so we were able to get him here. So we're very proud of his leadership and his presence here at the institutions. I'm reminded as dean, and some of you know, most of you that have been in the office, noticed that I had 3 pictures that were forever present on the wall. One of the pictures was a picture about attitude, and just some information about a definition of attitude, which helped me to know what my attitude should be like and about. And more importantly, for others, when they come in and start reading, they would be reminded about attitude. And there was one about that reminded me of my commitment to the profession, because it was the original inauguration papers where the university became a member of Phi Delta Kappa. And then the other one was one that was given to me by former dean, or the person that served as dean before I got there, and there was a picture, an inscription on the bottom of it said, "Lord, please bless me. My ship is so small and this ocean is so large." So I sort of feel like that as I come to you this afternoon. But I'm encouraged because, for several reasons. One, during the last day and a half, you have participated and listened to presenters, and you have discussed issues surrounding problem-based learning, challenges, components, and benefit that I think are very timely and thought-provoking. In my comments, I will talk about some of the same things, but instead of saying challenges, I will say opportunities and benefits as results of knowledge about problem-based learning. I think this information comes at a critical time because of some of the issues that we're faced with in Piece 16 education. And when I say Piece 16, I'm referring to from preschool all the way through college. Because we're all in this boat together, whether you want to believe it or not. And that connection and how well we manage that connection will determine how successful we are here at this university and at other universities throughout the state. As we talk about learning, or the opportunities to learn, as we talk about student achievement, school progress, we have to be reminded that the education that the young people receive is directly related to their quality of life and also to economic development in our community and throughout this country. Somebody mentioned that earlier this morning. The one thing that I wanted to do again before I get too far away, I know of the commitment of the leader, Dr. Benjamin, and this Educational Access Committee. I know the persistence of Dr. Benjamin. I know that the work involved, and I know how hard you work to work through a lot of issues and get down to a theme like we have here and that we've addressed the last day and a half. So I would like to ask you to please join me in extending an applause to Dr. Benjamin for her leadership and the committee for their work. Now, I hope you listen very closely to the presenters because they had some good information. I think, again, I would say it was very timely. And of course, the working sessions, and I've set in on the first one I want to mention is the student teachers. That was something that I hope you all got a chance to listen to and observe, because the teachers, they're the one that's out there, they're the one out in the trenches, as people would say. They're our future. They're the ones that's going to shape the minds and ideas of all of our future leaders that they're exposed to. Now, those leaders and those minds that they shape will become leaders. They'll become superintendents, governors, legislators, lawyers, doctors, whatever the case might be. So whatever the case is, when you lend yourself to those individuals for services, you want the best that you can afford. And it all started with a teacher. Each of you in this room can remember a teacher or teachers that had a great impact on your life. The list, you could narrow it down probably to one or two, but that teacher is there. And that means to say we never know the impact of a teacher on the lives of individuals that they work with. Now, if you think their work is not important, look at the benchmark data resulting from the test that students took last week. Or go online and look at the report cards from the various schools and see how well students are performing. Some are doing good, some are not doing as well. But there's hope because of teachers that we have here and teachers that we have at other institutions. Our challenge is to bring about a positive change in student achievement and school performance. I don't know what you think when you pick up the paper any morning and start reading about the schools that's placed on school improvement, or what your mindset might be when you start reading about some of the issues that schools are faced with. But regardless of what you think, those are going to be the students that one day either they'll be here or they'll be at some other institution, hopefully, for higher education. How well they are prepared will basically determine how well we are able to progress, as I said earlier. And I think the reason this is so critical, this is one issue that the governor and all policymakers keep before us when they start talking about the relationship between higher education and economic development. Now, there was a report in what was called, there's a journal called Talk Business Quarterly that talked about the class of 2025 Specifically, they say, what will the world look like for the next generation of learners and workers, basically. They talked about shifting demographics, they talked about the marketplace, and they talked about how the skills will be redefined in the future. So that means that what we were hearing this morning, problem-based learning and other strategies, will be important in that we will have an opportunity to improve student achievement and school performance. And I can't separate the two because they go hand in hand. Dr. Bernhardt shared several components of the problem-based learning. And of course, you had heard some of those before. But he talked about the benefits of learning in small groups. He talked about the fact that the problem forms the focus and the stimulus. And he also talked about the emergence of new knowledge. All of those are the kinds of things that we want students to be able to do as a result of our teaching. I can remember, and you know, I said to, I spoke with Dr. Bernhardt a little earlier, I said, you know, what you described sounds very much like what I did almost 50 years ago when I was teaching in vocational schools. And it is, the process. I remember, and it's a few people, just a few in this room who might remember, that as a vocational teacher and teachers early on, we dealt with problems, and specifically in the vocational areas. You would lecture, or you would teach, or you would demonstrate, and then you would assign a problem to a group of students. For example, you might say, we have a lawnmower, and it will not run. The reason it will not run is for you to determine. Then you assign that to a group of students. Then you might have another one that you assign to another group of students with a similar problem, a different problem. But at the end of the day, those students would have to get back, they would have to find out, they'd have to discover, then they would have to report back to the class what they did. And the bottom line is the engine would have to run as a result of their interventions. And then they're able to talk about that. One of the things that we exclude too often when we start working with students is the fact that we ignore the knowledge and know-how that they bring into the learning environment. You know, we want to make sure that we give them everything that we know. And a lot of time that's done very inappropriately by standing before students lecturing all day. Now, I don't need to say anything else about that. You know about that, I know about that, and we're going to try some things different, hopefully, as a result of this theme that we've been addressing for the last day and a half. But problem-based learning helps students to find connections. And most of all, as Dr. Bernhardt said, it helps to improve communication among students. It gives them confidence, it gives them feedback, immediate feedback, and then it allows the teacher or the instructor to serve as a facilitator. And that frees the teacher up to intervene and to give some direction, and students over a long period of time will become direct learners. In some cases, in a very short period of time, depending on how well you do the facilitating. And another model that mirrors that is in adult education. We were taught in terms of teaching adults, there's a science called andragogy, and that is the science of teaching adults. And when you teach adults, you utilize that prior experience. You allow them to work in groups. You encourage them to define problems and then report back to their peers and to have discussions about that. And most of all, you allow them to write about that. And too often we let students off the hook because they can tell us about things verbally, but we don't stop to have them to write about that and then evaluate that writing and then give them feedback. So when they move from English 101 to 102, they already know how to write. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that we could be received from the message that we got from this conference and problem-based learning. I think so. You know, you might say, well, what should we do as a result of that? First of all, I think there needs to be some follow-up. There needs to be some follow-up. I think if we had adequate follow-up, and I share the blame, so I'm not putting it on anybody else, but if we had adequate follow-up to all of the 19 conferences that we have had, Dr. Benjamin, we would be a lot better off here at UAPB, because every critical issue that you can imagine have been addressed one way or the other by this conference during the last 19 years. So, and I shared with Dr. Benjamin yesterday, what if we had a core of teachers, faculty, P-12 teachers, people from the educational co-op and other places that would be trained in this process. And what if that group could come back and train others? And then what if we could get buy-in from the faculty? Not every course would you have to do, but what if you did at least one course that you teach, if it was redesigned and involved this strategy, engage this strategy as a process for instruction? And what if somebody would get smart enough to say, well, you know, this is working so well, I'm going to take all these pieces and put them together, and I'm going to say to Department of Higher Education, we need a grant to fund this because we're onto something that's working. Just like you heard Shane Broadway talk about what went on when they went to visit the technical school in Texas, like you heard the gentleman explaining here today, if you got an idea, somebody will fund it. Now, the politics of that is having Shane Broadway here to speak to you, and when he sees the proposal come across his desk about this particular theme and how you are implementing something, it gets a priority, and it can get funded. And as a result of that, some professor or instructor decide, well, you know, this is so good, I'm going to write about it, and I'm going to present it at a conference in New York. When you present it at a conference in New York, everybody see it. And then people start calling UAPB to say, how are you doing that? We want our representatives to come and explain to us. And then UAPB becomes known for expertise in problem-based learning. It's just simple as that. I say it's simple, but it's a process that can happen. And that's where my mind was when the speaker was speaking, and I hope you would consider some of those things. Now, policymakers criticize us, higher education specifically, for having more data than we ever attempt to use. They say we make decisions and it's not based on data. And we know that Arkansas is a data-rich state, Representative Rainey. And as a result of that, any data that you need to support any kind of proposal you want is right there at your fingertips. It's there. So legislators want to know, well, if you have all the data, you have access to partner with the schools, you have an opportunity to do that. The P-12 schools, because of Lakeview, is funded adequately according to what legislators said. All children have an opportunity for an adequate education. We put money in there, set aside for facilities, for transportation, for students that's not doing well. We put a limit on the class sizes. So why aren't our students learning? That's the question. That's the question. And Dr. Benjamin, yesterday when you gave the directions to access the wireless internet, we all chuckle when you said A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. Well, that's very, you know, it was kind of humorous, but the bottom line is, if our children, the students coming to UAPB, were well prepared in basic skills, and too many of them are not. Some are, now don't get me wrong, but if you take the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and the symbols and all of the things that form those into ways of communicating about reading and arithmetic and writing, we wouldn't have to have this conversation this afternoon, because our students will be doing well. So that say to me that we still have work to do. We know more about that than policymakers, so we will have to help them to understand how all this come about. But while we're helping them to understand, they say to us, and they said to the Department of Education, we are going to cut the budget of higher education if they don't show progress in the areas of reducing remediation, improving retention, and increasing the number of degrees that's awarded to students. They also say that you're only going to have so much time to get them ready to receive a degree, the time to degree. So that means that you got to cut back on your degree plans and those kinds of things. So that's where we are, and that's why I think this is so important in terms of the way we do business. Now, Chancellor Davis often used a quote that nothing we did yesterday is good enough for tomorrow. I think we believe that, and we know that. Funding agencies, the Department of Education, accrediting bodies, organization, and all of those involved are beginning to raise the bar. When I say raising the bar, I mean that they are increasing their expectations for student performance. So that means that we got to produce better, we must produce better students. Some of you remember in 2010, Secretary Duncan was at a forum and he said that if the president was to realize his goal to lead the world in college graduates, HBCUs would have to make better strides towards graduating more students. And specifically, he said, and I got that message, that schools of education were going to have to graduate more African-American students or teachers of color to interact with the increasing number of children of color that's entering our P-12 schools. You can't argue with that point. So that means that we have to be more accountable for what we do. And also, there was a report I saw recently, and there was an article in the paper about the special performance report. Superintendent, I think that was the name of it, David. And it said that it reminded us that we have, 468,000 children in the public schools of Arkansas. But we know there's a great disconnect between what the performance that's demonstrated by some of the minority and poor children and their white counterparts. So we have a large achievement gap. That's what I'm trying to get at. And a lot of those students that demonstrate that achievement gap, where do they go to college? We get a lot of them here, and they go into other schools. So we have to be prepared. And I want to keep making that point because, you know, I think Mr. Barnhart said yesterday, those are our students. Those are our students. And President L.A. Davis Sr. said back in 1965, he talked about the same issue. He said those are the students, and that as faculty, we have to buy into the philosophy of the college. We have to accept the kinds of students that we're getting, and then he said we must stay with them until they have overcome the issues that they bring to us. That means that it's not going to be easy. So as I get very close to my time for me to take my seat, I want to talk about just a couple of more things. And I want to challenge you to consider seriously problem-based learning and how you might use it in your class. Whether it's in your class here, it's your Sunday school class, wherever you might find yourself and the opportunity to do that. And not only that, if you have friends and colleagues that could not be here this morning, this last 2 days, tell them about it and convince them that this is a good way to go. And that the way that we've been doing things is not good enough because it will not get the job done for our students. Now, there's a that report. There's another report that I might have mentioned. The report had to do with. It was by the Harvard Graduate School, Pathways to Prosperity. That report was published in 2011. Please read that report. You can just, as Dr. Benjamin said, you can Google Harvard Graduate School Pathways to Prosperity. And that report is about preparing young people for the workforce. And it reminded us that the system for preparing young people to lead productive lives as adults is clearly and badly broken in the United States. And that article reminded us that the United States has fallen from number 1 to 13th in high school graduations among industrialized nations, and that the United States now has the highest dropout rate of all industrialized nations in terms of students dropping out of college. So, ladies and gentlemen, we still have a lot of work to do. And I think as we continue to do the kinds of things that's being done here today and yesterday will help to get us there. And many of you know about David Conley's work from the University of Oregon, where he talked about college and career readiness. David Conley said that that there are several things that P-12 schools must do to get students to start thinking about college early on. One of the things that he mentioned is that they must create and maintain a college-going environment, change the culture of the school. They must also align their instructional program with career readiness. In other words, we found out what the P-12 students are getting at the 11th and 12th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade does not connect with what's expected when you get to be a freshman in college. So he said that those things need to be changed. He also believed that all schools should start preparing students, if they're not going to college, to engage in some kind of career, and I think that's commendable. Another reason that we should do something, according to Mark Twain, he said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, and catch the trade winds in your sail. In other words, get off a dead center, do something, because you'll be disappointed about that 20 years from now if you don't do anything. And I think we all know about Nike say, just do it. Just do it. Now, in closing, I found something that, I liked it. I'm sharing this with you because this was my choice. I liked it. I hope you will find something. But it is written by Dr. G.H. Rivas, and Dr. Edwin G.H. Rivas, as you know, was the one that provided the initial funding to establish Phi Delta Kappa back in the 1960s. And for some of you that don't know, Phi Delta Kappa used to publish these little fastbacks. And those fastbacks was our internet back in the 70s, because that's where we got all of our current information. But here's what he said, and listen to it he said, this fable of the administration of the school curriculum was special reference to individual differences. Once upon a time, the animals decided they must do something heroic to meet the problems of the new world. So they organized a school. They adopted an activity curriculum consisting of running, climbing, swimming, and flying. And to make it easier to administer, all the animals took all the subjects. The duck was an excellent swimmer, better in fact than his instructor, and made passing grades in flying, but he was very poor in running. Since he was so slow in running, he had to stay after school and also drop swimming to practice running. This was kept up until the web feet of the duck were so badly worn, and he was only average in swimming. But average was acceptable in the school, so nobody worried about that except the duck. The rabbit started at the top of the class in running, but had a nervous breakdown because of so much makeup work in swimming. The squirrel was excellent in climbing until he developed a frustration in the flying class, where his teacher made him start from the ground up instead of from the treetop down. He also developed charley horses from overexertion, and then got a C in climbing and a D in running. Well, the eagle was a problem child and was disciplined severely. In the climbing class, he beat all the others to the top of the tree, but insisted on using his own way to get there. At the end of the year, an abnormal eel that could swim exceedingly well, also run, climb, and fly a little, had the highest average and was the valedictorian of the class. The prairie dog stayed out of school and fought the tax levy because the administration would not add digging and burrowing to the curriculum. They apprenticed their child to a badger and later joined the groundhogs and the gophers to start a successful private school. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for those words of wisdom. We're very appreciative of him for taking everything that we've done here in the past day and a half and placing it in his final comments. And I love the story at the end that says that we must allow people to be proficient in the areas in which they are proficient and to strengthen their weakest areas, but not destroy their strengths by teaching them all about their weaknesses. Thank you again. It was a wonderful, appropriate speech for the time. I'm going to ask Dr. Mary Benjamin if she will come at this time.
Let's give Dr. Johnson another round of applause. That was so timely. Spoken like a true educator, a refined political leader, and a person of wisdom. We really appreciate that. Dr. Johnson, would you please step back up for a moment? On behalf of this Educational Access Conference and the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, we want to present this desk object to you and to let you know that we expect to see it visibly placed on the new desk that you will soon occupy.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And this is something that you should only open at home.
Okay. Would like to make a presentation to you.
Okay.
And I want, many of you don't know, I've probably been working with Dr. Benjamin as long as I've been here at the institution, but she probably doesn't remember that early on when I arrived on campus, we had attended a conference at University of Central Arkansas. We were returning back, and of course, Dr. Benjamin was all motivated. I don't remember what the conference was, but she said, you know, she said, wouldn't it be nice if we had something at UAPB that could grow into an annual conference? And she was talking about a conference where we could address the needs of our students. And Dr. Benjamin, I just know you just didn't say it at the time. You was talking about educational access.
All right, we had to name it.
So as a representative for the Access Conference Committee and the university, it is my pleasure to present this token of appreciation to you.
Thank you so
for
much.
all the hard work that we know that you do.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's been a good 1.5 days, and I'm not going to take a lot of your time, but I will ask if you will give me about 5 minutes, because I would like to extend thanks to a lot of people. And I'm not going to do it by individuals, but by groups. I would like to start now and end where we started yesterday. I'd like to acknowledge the planning committee. However good this conference has been, it's only because of the hard work of the planning committee. So would you please stand? Don't be shy. If you are on the planning committee, please stand and be acknowledged. Thank you so much. We meet for about 6 months, about twice a week, and as we get closer to the conference, it's once a week. And they do that while they are carrying out their other full-time assigned responsibilities here at the university. I also want to thank each program participant, and that includes the musicians, the soloists, all of the presenters, the moderators. Would you stand? And I know a lot of those have left, but for those that are still here, please stand and be acknowledged. You made a difference. You helped our concept become a reality. And we really thank the media and our own media center for capturing what has happened here for future reference. We need to document good concepts when they occur. I'd like to also thank Thompson Hospitality. They are still in the house, so let's let them know how we appreciate them. And the leadership for this facility. Dr. Torrance and the staff here have been wonderful in terms of hosting us, and he represents the new leadership here at this university. We have a whole cadre of emerging leaders like Dr. Torrance. That's why we feel so good about this university. We know that we are in good hands and we have people in place to carry forth the legacy. Now, when we started this conference on yesterday, you know, we talk a lot about assessment, and I believe in that. So I need you to pull your book out. Pull your book out, if you would, and go back and find those conference objectives, because I want to go back over them and see if we achieve them. I promise you that, so I'm not giving you a pop quiz. This is one that you knew would be coming. First, we wanted to create greater awareness of the values and components of problem-based learning. Did we do it? Hope so. To demonstrate the use of technology in the teaching and learning environment. Hope you learned something about that. To facilitate guided dialogue on strategies to address diversity in school and community settings. Did it? All right, and to further, I'm not going to read the last one, but anyway, it's to expand the network of caring people who will receive these concepts and go back home and make a difference. So I want to thank you so much for coming, to let you know that there will be a follow-up survey, a monkey survey, and Dr. Lorenz sends it out. So when you see that name, Lorenz and UAPB, Don't delete it. Don't send it to the delete box. Please answer those questions because they mean a lot to us as we plan for the next year, but it also lets us let people know when you do those reports and all, how we have made use of the time and the dollars that were invested in this conference. Please know that next April, after the benchmarks are given, we will host another conference here at the university of this nature. If there's any particular topic that you would like to have us consider, please share those with us. And now, as we leave this place, may you go in peace, may you arrive home safely, and may you always keep a good word on your mind and speak a good word for the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. May peace be with you.
Thank you, Dr. Benjamin. You're almost ready to go. Almost, almost. Don't get that little rock shake the children get. If you attended the first student-teacher roundup session, I need you to raise your hand so that you can receive an evaluation. They neglected to get the evaluation. Ms. Nesby will come around to your table. If you'll just leave your hand up, I'll raise it when she gets to your table. She will give you an evaluation. There are two people on the dais that we did not present to you, Mr. Elbert Bennett, who is Vice Chancellor, Assistant to the Chancellor, Ms. Pauline Compton, who is Vice Chancellor for Finance, and we're glad to have them here with us today. They did not stand, but will you give them a round of applause for being here with us today? We're always happy to have them here with us. And it said follow-up activities. Dr. Benjamin has given you most of them, but I will say to you this. When we came on yesterday morning, each of us came as key ingredients to make a cake. As elderly people would say, a cake from scratch. It didn't come out of a box. Notice I said that each of you were key ingredients. As the presenters began to talk and you interacted with them, we stirred the cake and we put it in a pan that was prepared. Now you've eaten the cake and you're in the process of digesting it. As you digest it, you will go back to your individual school districts or your places of employment and use the material that was given to you and place on your calendar sometime in late March or April of next year to come again so that we together can bake another cake. You have been delightful. We've been pleased to have you here. One other housekeeping chore. Now take out this blue form for this session that you just enjoyed and complete it and leave it on your table. There is an invisible person at the door that will stop you if they don't have the form from you on the table. That being all, are there any questions, issues, and/or concerns? You have been delightful. It's Godspeed, traveling grace, traveling mercies, and I'll see you again next year as you come to help us bake another delicious cake.